Hi guys, it's Jacob from Stringbuzz here, stringbuzzworld.org being the music journalism site, links are in the description down below. And we have another addition to this weekly series which I'm going to be doing. I'm going to be doing it on Fridays now instead of Sundays, as I think by the time Sundays come across you've probably forgotten about the news on the Monday, and I'd rather just make it snappy like that. And if you want me to do this every day, then I'll do it every day as a daily show instead, because believe me, there is enough music news to get around. So this is the Music Weekly News Roundup with Stringbuzz, the 16th of the 6th, 2017. So I hope you enjoy. So the first story we've got today is a bit of a happy one actually, since we left the last news show on a bit of a downer, and that's JayZ is now the first rapper to be inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. Now the Brooklyn-born rapper JayZ has now officially been inducted into the Songwriters Hall of Fame. He is the first rapper ever to be inducted into this, and it's breaking boundaries around the world. Now, JayZ was originally announced as a 2017 inductee into the acclaimed songwriting catalogue back at the start of this year, in February in fact, having already been nominated for this prestigious accolade back in November of last year. And as you may or may not already know, the award has been given out, or rather the induction has been given to the likes of John Lennon, Elton John, Paul Simon and Bob Dylan, just to name a few, amongst many other notable names in the past. Also, in case you didn't already know, inductees are nominated by their peers in the music industry, meaning that each induction is a clear group effort. For me though, although this is an incredibly significant moment in music and music history, I kind of feel that it's about a decade too late. Rap has been a staple genre now for 20 to 30 years, and for JayZ to be the first inducted into the Hall of Fame in 2017 seems a bit like a belated congratulations. Hopefully this opens the door to many other cultures and genres so that we can start seeing a bit of diversity when it comes to our music history. Personally, I'd like to think that this could be a gateway to many other rappers such as Dr. Dre, maybe A Tribe Called Quest, and maybe even people like the Wu-Tang Clan, even the whole of the NWA, just to really freshen things up and finally start incorporating some of the parts of our music history that hasn't been talked about enough. And we'll move on to a completely different story, perhaps the stupidest one we're going to cover this week, and that is Gene Simmons is looking to trademark the devil horns hand gesture. Yes, good old Gene Cinnamon Buns. In what is probably our most bonkers story that we're going to cover this month, Gene Simmons has now indeed tried to trademark the devil horns hand gesture. The infamous sort of Kiss bassist and singer as well, Gene Simmons, seems to be more than just a little bit confused by the gesture that he has used for years in his concerts. Now, Gene Simmons has filed a trademark for what he calls his hand gesture, saying that he is the first to have used it in the entertainment business back in November 14th, 1974. Yes, he remembers that date. He believes it was the first date that he flashed it to the crowd and that he practically made it up, that he invented this hand gesture. Now, let's bear in mind here that his supposed created gesture is actually the American Sign Language sign for I love you, and that's thanks to musicnews.com for that, just for that little tidbit of knowledge. So obviously he didn't create it. And let's also bear in mind here that John Lennon used the sign nearly 10 years before he did for his Yellow Submarine single sleeve. So yes, he is genuinely trying to trademark to try and stop it being used in, and I quote, entertainment, namely live performances by a musical artist and personal appearances by a musical artist. He basically wants to be paid royalties if somebody uses the devil horns hand gesture live. This literally might be the worst trademarking idea I have ever heard, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. It is literally up there with when Taylor Swift actually nuttily trademarked this sick beat, that phrase, the year 1989, and the word Swifties. So what even is this world anymore? Now on to a bit more of a solemn story this time around. YouTube star Austin Jones has now been released on bail, ordered to stay offline after child porn charges and allegations. This has been a big story throughout this week, covered by many other YouTube personalities, so I'm going to give you a bit of the background of what's happened since a lot of these people originally reported on it. A Chicago-based federal judge has decided to free the popular YouTube singer as he awaits trial on 2 counts of producing child pornography for allegedly supposedly asking underage fans by the form of social media to send him sexually explicit videos of themselves often engaging in erotic dancing and other sexual acts. Supposedly, he instructed one 14-year-old girl to be more sexually explicit in her videos to prove that she was his biggest fan. The judge at yesterday's court hearing ordered the 24-year-old Austin Jones to stay off of the internet and remain in his mother's Chicago suburban home. Austin clearly understood the releasing conditions, as we can see live in the videos of the court appearance, and it's a story that we will have to continue giving you information on as it gets updated, because it is going to be one of those types of stories. He actually faces a minimum of 15 years in prison if convicted, and again we will have to wait for the answer to whether this will be the case. Personally, from the evidence alone that has been presented and a lot of the videos and sound bites that have been leaked of his sort of side of things, I think this case will only go one way, and I honestly hope it only goes one way. Manipulating fans and pushing underage fans into this position so that you can feel some form of power and dominance over them is a horrific thing that only a little man would do, and the fact that he's been doing this for a little while now is even more scary to me. We can see this happen all too often when it comes to YouTube personalities in particular over the last 2 or 3 years or so, and hopefully this will push further investigations into situations like this so that hopefully those who abuse this sort of power over their fans have to suffer the consequences of their sick actions. I think it's about time these sort of people started getting caught and started, facing serious time. Now, I don't know how big this story will be from around the rest of the world, because I don't think N-Dubz ever broke America or anything like that, so this next story is more for our British viewers out there, and that's former N-Dubz rapper Dappy pleads guilty to knife charges. Now, Dappy has now admitted to having a bladed item in a public place after arming himself with a butcher's knife during a row with his partner. Now, before we dive into my personal opinion on all of this, I want to make sure that all the court information is summarized appropriately, so please bear with me when it comes to all this legal stuff. So a plea of not guilty to common assault on Imani Campbell, which is Dappy's partner, was accepted by the prosecution yesterday. The row was believed to have taken place at the couple's home in Hatfield, Hertfordshire on the 10th of May, so a little while back now. The prosecutor, Neil King, said that there was mobile phone footage taken by a witness in the street, and it showed the rapper coming out of his home, then walking over to a bush in the front of his garden, from where he then picked up a knife and took it back inside again. The couple was then seen outside once again before going straight back inside. Dappy is also to have said to have been carrying, or rather pointing the knife at members of the public, making intimidating remarks, whilst also carrying a thin boring knife, or a boning knife, I think is also what it's called. It's like a long curved blade as well at that time. The judge said that it is likely that Dappy, who was denied bail by the way, would receive just a custodial sentence. For me, I'm incredibly surprised we haven't heard more about this, because the artist in question is still in the public eye and still is a big name within the industry today, and this is a serious criminal offence. It's difficult to comment on matters like this as we don't know enough about it until the video is actually shown publicly, but personally, anyone who threatens domestic violence or violence to the public should be branded as a scumbag. The reason this story is on today's segment is not just because of the severity of it, but also because it's an immensely serious offence, as I've just said, that hasn't been reported thoroughly enough by many media outlets. So yeah, I think it's about time all of you knew about this. Now, our last story is a bit of a strange one. It's a bit convoluted and it's a bit confusing, and that is Tinashe responds to what is being branded as the colorism controversy after online criticism. Now, the emerging US star is hitting back at criticism she has received online after stating her lack of success is a race issue. Tinashe has told The Guardian fairly recently that she didn't feel accepted by the black community despite being a mixed woman. She also said in an interview that her music career hadn't really gone according to her original plan as well. The singer controversially exclaimed that black women in music were either Beyonce or Rihanna, and that's how she put it, and that's the US star Kiara, I think that's how you pronounce it, from a little while back. Her career suffered because of it as well. As you'd expect in this day and age anyway, she was brutalized on Twitter with many comments indicating that she couldn't simply blame any communities, but rather her agents, her manager, and all those around her in a business form should be the ones to blame when it comes to all this sort of stuff. Tinashe then hit back saying that I wasn't talking about colorism in the music industry, this was just taken out of context. In the past, Tinashe has also previously claimed her African-American roots had left her feeling as an outsider. Again, she is hit back by saying that each one of these statements has been taken completely out of context, and that the original article framed it as blunt statements about her success in music, whereas the conversation she had was about her experiences growing up in general. Now for me, you can sound that biggest non-story of the week klaxon, because this is a tiny statement blown well out of proportion. Tinashe has simply had a lot of her words twisted and taken out of context. I do believe that, allowing for herself to be put hence in a very vulnerable position to the public. I don't believe that there was any commentary on colorism here, not in detail anyway, and I think her statements perhaps aren't worded very well, but certainly aren't meant to be that offensive or even insulting towards anyone really. Of course, I think there is a lot of racism out there in the music industry today. There are still artists out there who struggle to be where they should be really at now in the music industry, down to their culture and their background. But this is rather just a comment or a point of view taken from someone who, from what she's personally seen, what she's personally experienced. I think the black community remarks were poor of her. I think they didn't really make an awful lot of sense to anyone, but then I don't know the context, and we are yet to have been shown the context. The comments on the whole Rihanna or Beyonce sort of situation, I actually believe, and I think they are constantly shoved down the mainstream all the time, with other figures and icons being left secondary for no real reason. At times, as a reviewer myself and as a music journalist, it does feel like the only two artists people seems to care about nowadays when it comes to R&B are the likes of these two, amongst a couple of maybe other male staple names. You know, it's either John Legend, it's Rihanna, or it's Beyonce, and that's constantly shoved down our throat by the media. So I think the media is leaving out a lot of famous and iconic black singers around at the moment. All in all though, I think it's a non-story because the statements don't really have too much meaning behind them. They are worded poorly, sure, the backlash is just stupid though, and the only thing of value here hasn't really been concentrated on by the majority of mainstream media. The Rihanna or Beyonce comment is a clever comment, it's a comment we should be talking about, but that's just seen as an off-guarded comment, and there's way too much talk of this colorism stuff. This is taken way out of context. It's clearly taken out of context. Until we know the wider picture, people should just really be shutting up. We've already explained today about this huge YouTube star involved with child porn. We've talked about Dappy with domestic violence, and you know, people are getting upset about somebody's statements who are taken out of context, which don't really mean anything. So that's just my opinion anyway, and I'd love to hear what you think in the comment section down below. If you disagree with what I've said, then I'd love to know why, because I'd love to know your side of the story as well. I'm always interested in sort of debating these topics and what other people sort of see, you know, outside of my sort of little musical sphere. But anyways, comment on any of these stories which I've laid out here today. Subscribe to see more, leave a like if you enjoyed it as well, and I'll see you around next time. Bye-bye.